it's Abby from Facing Pages. Been a long week, long couple of weeks, and so I'm gonna do some painting. I don't know a lot about painting, but I have some new fun things. I have my new Viviva color sheets that I got as a present from my folks. Gonna test those out. I have this round watercolor paper, which seemed very fun. And I have these sort of paintbrush things that you fill with water and then you use them that way. Don't really know how to use any of these things yet, but I thought it'd be fun. And while I do a little painting, I'm going to talk about a workshop that I took last weekend. So I took a very fun workshop with my poetry goddess, Brenda Hillman, and previous poet laureate, Robert Haas. And I took it because it seemed like it would be a fun opportunity to do some continuing learning. I like that idea of continuing ed and doing more of it. I want to give my brain some things to work on, to think about. And I just happened to see this workshop on Facebook. It was an online workshop. And the subject was eco poetry. So we started off with some poetry by Gerard Manley Hopkins, or as my students used to call him, Gerard Manley Hopscotch, because he hops around. I guess that was the reason for that title. And so we went through kind of historically various poets in the eco poetry tradition, which lots of very cool poets, including Camille Dungy, who I do have met a couple of times, and who has Black Nature, which is poetry, often eco poetry from African American and African diaspora voices, which is super, super cool. I have a copy of that book. And in the eco poetry tradition, which is, as Brenda called it, it's worried nature poetry is what she called it. And I kind of love that. I think that's extremely well put and easy to understand. It's something that I think resonates, which I found really interesting too for me, because I don't write eco poetry at this point, but I feel like I could easily do so. And reading through some of their ideas of these poets and who they are, what they cared about, was really interesting for me. So I did that. I thought it was great. I had a good time learning about these poets from these people that I respect, and it was wonderful. I was really excited to do it. I was one of very few non-Californians there, which was also kind of interesting for me, because a good many of the poems addressed mountains, and I don't live near mountains. I live in the Midwest. I do, however, have a long sort of history with sand dunes, spending time on Lake Michigan, on the west hand side of Michigan. So I feel like that might be a way for me to go. I do know a little bit about that subject because of the time that I spent there vacationing and reading about them in the visitors centers and so on, and learning about different types of sand and different types of erosion and different types of rebuilding them, thinking about what the whole need is to restore that ecosystem and maintain it. I mean, I too have been a child that was running all over the sand dunes, and I still do it when I'm up there, to be honest. And yet, I know um, that Michigan is working hard to maintain its sand dune structure and to keep that ecosystem going, to keep that sort of um, environment active for the various animals that live there. And so I feel like that could be something that could be a subject that I might write about in the future, as I'm kind of pivoting some of my poetry attention. And I hope that will be part of the ideas that start to preoccupy my brain. But it was also just interesting hearing people responding to these poems, to hear two fabulous poets responding to these poems, and hearing them question meaning. To talk about, what does this mean? That's something that Robert Haas said a couple of times. Like, what is this? What does that mean? And that was really good for me to hear, because I think a lot of times we have imposter syndrome as poets. Well, I know we have imposter syndrome as poets, and I think hearing well-renowned poet looking especially at some contemporary work and saying, what is this? How does this new idea, this new way build meaning? That was really important for me. I really enjoyed hearing about that and thinking about that. So I was glad that he was just kind of blunt about it. He was very blunt and straightforward about it. And I just responded really well to that environment. I think, I don't take classes a lot anymore because I'm teaching a lot and doing all kinds of other things. And it was just a really good reminder that we should take classes. We should be continuing learners. I'm always very big on curiosity with my various students. I think it's really important to think about that, and to understand the various ways that we can still learn, to come up with new thoughts, especially because I'm writing and I want to keep my writing fresh. I want to keep thinking about my own growth, my own artistic growth. So, but it was also exhausting because I kind of forgot how much that can sort of take out of you as a scholar. When I'm writing, I am not pleasant to be around. I am exhausting, in fact. So the workshop was on Saturday, and on Sunday I did spend more time with my own manuscript for my second book, which is kind of making the rounds right now. And so I did also spend some time with myself, my darker self, that's trying to get this done, trying to understand what I need to move this project forward. And it was, it was good. It was something that I needed to do, but holy heck, was it exhausting. So this past weekend, I was recovering from a concert that I performed in. I'm a part of our choral society, University Choral Society. And we performed Mozart's Requiem, the Levin completion, which was very exciting and very strenuous. My vocal health is not terrific these days, and it was a challenge, but we made it through. I think we sounded really good. It was awesome, but of course it was exhausting. And one thing that I experience very heavily and kind of always have is post-show letdown or post-show blues, whatever you want to call it. And I do not cherish that experience. It's something that I've experienced a lot in my life. And, growing up with a dance background, I have had a lot of this feeling and not really ever getting adjusted to it. I've been adjusted to it, but not really finding necessarily very good coping mechanisms. So I'm always trying to find better habits, better ways to do things, but failing. And so I've been meaning to paint for a little bit, and just to kind of restore my energy a little bit. It's just been a really interesting couple of weeks. We had a preview day at our school. We spent some time talking to new students, prospective students, students who had been accepted, students who were still deciding if on our school, and I got to talk to a lot of potential creative writers and literature majors and minors, which is always a pleasure. I love doing that. Actually, it is exhausting. The preview day was huge. Actually, there were a ton of people, and it was nice to talk to the students' entourage and so on, like I always get to do. I like participating in these preview days because I think it's really important to have that sort of first contact with the students. I don't teach their workshops and things like that, but I do teach the editing and publishing and professionalization stuff. I head up a lot of internships and so on. So just being there, being present was really useful and appropriate. But again, it's tiring, and I'm talking, and here I am talking again, babbling really. But thanks for staying with me. Thanks for sticking with it. So I've had it in my mind that I wanted to spend some time painting. Like I said, I'm not very good at it, but it is entertaining. It's soothing. And honestly, isn't that a good enough reason to do most things? I feel like it is, and I appreciate the chance to just spend a little time doing that. So I'm mostly using this brush, this really kind of small one. I don't know what it is, but I'm always most comfortable with a really small brush. It just makes more sense to my brain, I guess, as I'm working and experimenting and doing things. I'm sort of experimenting with the different colors here, trying to figure out what each color sort of does, and adding to it as needed, changing my mind as needed to sort of get a vibe for what's going on in here. Man, it is hard to get something that is like suitably dark from these sheets. That's what I'm learning. That's a little bit better. It needs to be that color, or darker even. Using a lot of midnight blue with this whole setup. So there's a spot in my yard. I planted a rose bush out there, or a rose bush. I planted a raspberry bush out there, and I'm very fond of them, these guys, because they just grow everywhere. They're obnoxious that way. Most people don't probably know because they just have this type around. It's this sort of black and red type. Most people don't really know how they grow, but they can arch out these lunging kind of, I can't remember what they're called. It doesn't matter. I'll post it in the text. They put out these little arms, these thorny arms that can burrow into the ground, runners. And then they also run them underneath the earth. And of course, birds and squirrels and so on also eat the berries and sort of transport them. So I have this in my backyard, in the very back of my backyard. And the squirrels and birds and runners have also succeeded in having them appear at the top of my backyard, up close to my house, and fortunately in the little spot that I use for a garden. But even that is sort of funny, and it's starting to sort of invade. I'm sure my landlords are not happy with that fact, but it is what it is. And I like having them because it reminds me of my childhood. We had a lot of these sorts of berry bushes in our little forest area alongside our house. And we also have them up north in our family area. And I used to feed myself with them. I used to eat them, a lot of the berries, when I was outside, because I was outside most of the time. And they are just part of my experience of summer, and always have been. And my bush, the shrub out back, has been just outrageous. It produced so much last year. I need to trim it back. I'm terrible about trimming things. It's just not something I usually think of. But it's been kind of interesting watching that grow. And we did have some, not wild, but, uncultivated ones in our alley as well. But it's just entertaining to have so many of them. But what's really wild right now is that the berry bushes are collaborating with the neighbor's nightshade. Yes, that is correct. My neighbors have nightshade accidentally. It's been there forever, and it's been just kind of by their brush heap. And I actually warned the previous family that lived there, or one of the previous families that lived there, about them, because they had a small kid. But, they don't do any harm. They're just kind of there. But they do this fun thing where they grow together. They commingle nightshade and raspberries. And obviously you can tell the difference. It's not hard, but it is still kind of funny to me that they're there, and, we're not really in danger of children coming and picking them or anything. But I thought I would just paint a little bit of some berries and some nightshade together. And obviously it's going to take me some time, but I thought it would be sort of fun to kind of memorialize that in more than a picture, because I definitely took some photos last year of the same thing. And yeah, so that's kind of what we're doing. I'm liking this paper. This paper is very interesting. Just the texture of it is really fun. I'm not super keen. I'm having trouble with these brushes, these paint brushes, and but just because I don't understand them. Maybe someone in the comments can help me understand them. Just because I don't, I get it. I get them, but I also don't. Like, I'm just sort of struggling, and I don't care though. Like, I'm okay with it. I have a friend who is learning watercolors also, and she's amazing at it. She's very, very good, and she's also diligent. And that is one thing that cannot be said about me and my painting. I am not diligent at all. I just do it when I feel like it, because it is very soothing. And so, yeah, I'm just experimenting and playing around, because really that is just as good of a reason to do some painting and screwing around. And I encourage everybody to have a couple hobbies like this that you aren't necessarily good at, but that still, kind of brings you comfort or makes you happy and engages your mind in a different way. I'm so busy thinking about writing and then also thinking about my students. I don't get a chance to just sort of let it go, let my brain function in a different way. So I'm glad of this chance to sort of do that and just to play around and enjoy whatever's happening here. Because Lord only knows what is in fact happening here. How are you? I hope that you're well. It's so hard sometimes to think about, everything that's going on. There's so much going on globally, and I think it's good to, be with each other, just really think about different ways of thinking about the world, being interested and invested in what's going on in the world. And so I hope you're well. I hope that you are finding ways to find joy and are experiencing new things in whatever ways that they may present themselves. Thanks for being here with me.